Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
What's going on, everybody? Dan Graca once again in for Stephen A. Smith here on a busy sports Thursday, the 7th day of December 2017. You know the phone number. It's 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. You could get me on Twitter at Dan Graca, Graca. Shout out to all the folks listening on Sirius XM Channel 80 as well. We'll begin Week 14 of the National Football League tonight down in Atlanta with the Falcons hosting the New Orleans Saints in a good old-fashioned NFC South showdown. We'll be joined a little bit later on in the program by ESPN NFL analyst and former Patriot linebacker world champ Teddy Bruschi. And if you want to real quickly look at this game tonight, let's face facts. This is probably the last stand for the Atlanta Falcons if they want to repeat as NFC South champs. I know that they're only 2 games back. They have 4 to play. And ironically enough, the schedule makers left things till the very end because the Saints and the Falcons are going to play each other twice in the next 3 weeks. So you could say, well, if Atlanta wins both of those games, we have a whole new conversation. And that's true. But they have to be able to win both of these games. And the way things are so nip and tuck right now in the NFC, I mean, every game counts at this stage of the season, and the Falcons don't have anything locked up or anything assured in terms of a playoff position by any stretch of the imagination. You also got to count the Carolina Panthers in there, too, who are wedged between those 2 clubs in the NFC South at 8-4. So they are going to be a team to be reckoned with as well. We'll do a lot of the NBA stuff later, too, but a lot of football you figure to be part of the conversation today over the next couple of hours. And we'll start off with the news of a commissioner, in this case Roger Goodell, getting a contract extension. And I know that Jerry Jones screamed bloody murder and did all he could to make sure that this commissioner would not be part of the mix any longer in the National Football League. And I've been watching sports. I've been a fan of sports for probably 3 decades, a little more, give or take. I don't ever remember, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, I don't ever remember a commissioner, anybody in charge of any sport, okay, who has been universally panned and who has been as unpopular as Roger Goodell has been during his tenure as the man running the National Football League. I mean, countless missteps, countless PR nightmares, countless PR disasters. But at the end of the day, it's an old saying, follow the money, and the green stuff rules the most. And that's why Roger Goodell has himself a new contract extension, one that is going to pay him, by the way, up to $40 million in annual compensation. That is why he is still sticking around as the guy in charge of the National Football League. The players don't like him. The players have very little respect for this guy. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, the players don't have a vote as to who the commissioner is or not. Now, the players, of course, and the head of the Players Association, DeMaurice Smith, they go to battle with Roger Goodell and the owners when it comes time to negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. And unfortunately for them, that doesn't happen again until 2021. And I think at the end of the day, whether a group of the owners disagree with Goodell, and we know that Jerry Jones is one of them. We know that Robert Kraft has had his issues with the commissioner over the last few years, i.e. because of Deflategate and the Tom Brady suspension. And Roger Goodell likes to wave the magic wand because he likes to be judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to imparting discipline amongst the players. I get all those things. But at the end of the day, the owner is going to sit back and he is going to check out the bottom line and see the money that they have coming into their pockets. And in that respect, the NFL is still thriving. You can tell me all you want about the TV ratings. You can tell me all about the product. And maybe it's not as good as it used to be. And look, I agree with you on that. And this has nothing to do with physical contact and hard hits and penalty flags and all that garbage. It has nothing to do with that. The actual product is not as good as it used to be. But that doesn't seem to matter. because this commissioner is still going to stay in place. And when that new collective bargaining agreement and those negotiations are up for discussion again in 2021, Roger Goodell is going to be at the helm because the National Football League still prints money. Are ratings down a little bit? Yeah. But are they still successful? Are they still bringing in an incredible amount of revenue? Is this game still continuing to grow? Absolutely. Maybe too much than they can even get their hands on. Maybe over and saturating the market, if you will, like with Thursday Night Football that you're going to see tonight. But tonight they actually get a good game, right? But $13 billion is the number that the NFL brought in 2016 in annual revenue. $13 billion. That's a lot, right? That's healthy. That's a great deal of productivity. And what owner is going to thumb their nose at that? What owner, even if you hate him, even if he suspended your best player, even if he took Ezekiel Elliott out of the mix, even if he took Tom Brady out of the mix for a quarter of the season, doesn't matter. $13 billion is $13 billion. And if you want to look at the rest of the major sports landscape in this great country of ours, Major League Baseball is next in line when you talk about the money that they take in, and they're at $9.5 billion. Okay, you could still say, oh, well, it's only a $3.5 billion difference. Yeah, well, $3.5 billion is $3.5 billion. And I don't see this machine slowing down. I know that they've had several missteps, and you could talk about all the controversy and the unpopularity, and maybe it's not what it used to be, all those things, but it's not slowing down. The problem that they're going to run into here in several years, when you have that next collective bargaining agreement, is how do the players approach the table? What do the players counter with this time around? Because the acrimony is still going to exist. I can't imagine anything, okay, and I'm not a fortune teller, but I can't imagine anything in the next 4 years to where there's suddenly going to be peace amongst the two sides. I can't imagine Roger Goodell's Q rating going through the roof and his popularity going through the roof amongst the players that when in 4 years it's going to be one big warm fuzzy room. I don't think that's happening. All right? I think it probably is only going to get worse because there's still going to be suspensions. There's still going to be punishments. I mean, think about this, right? In the last 2 seasons, you dealt with superstar players who went to war with this commissioner, with the courts, with the league, and ended up paying the price. Brady, Zeke Elliott, who's next? You know, what player are we going to be spending a lot of time talking about next summer who might have the start of his season jeopardized because of something he did off the field? But the players signed up for that. The players gave him the power. The players gave him the authority to be the guy who decides the punishment. If they don't like it, tough. Because I want to tell you something. It's not as easy as it appears. And remember what we started off this show talking about. The money. The green. I've spoken to several former players of the National Football League. Guys who were actually player reps for their respective teams when they played. And I said, boy, you know, look at all this garbage, the back and forth with Goodell and, you know, the league and the players. And you keep coming back to the same thing each and every time is that, well, the players relented and they gave him this authority. But you know what happens, and you know what the trade-off is? When it's presented to them at the bargaining table and the players are told, all right, you want to have a little bit more power? You want to have a little bit more say when it comes to discipline and all those measures? Well, then fine. We're taking X amount of money off the table, and it's going into our pockets and not into the players' pockets. And that's when the players kind of say, ooh, discipline and, you know, that's all well and good, but I'd rather have the money. That decides things at the end of the day. It's the money. It's a give and take. So if the players want a little bit more in terms of punishment and are a little less further for the commissioner, that means they're going to see less green in their paychecks. And that's not what they want to have happen. They can't have both. So at the end of the day, the league wins. The owners win. And that's something that they can't get past. And I got news for them. They're not going to be able to get past that either in 2021. It's just the way of the world. But as I said, you tell me, can you ever think of a commissioner, a guy who's been in charge of a sport, be less popular, this reviled than Roger Goodell has been in the last decade running the National Football League? I mean, it almost defies logic when you think about all the negativity and all the controversy that has happened off the field, through the media, PR, you name it. I mean, the NFL, think of how many times, right? Think of how many times in just the last couple of years where you could put on the national news. I'm not talking about Sports Center. I'm not talking about sports. I'm talking about the national news, right? Good Morning America, the Today Show, the nightly news, you name it. 60 Minutes. And the NFL is a lead story. And not because Tom Brady went out there and threw 4 touchdowns at the age of 40. That has nothing to do with it. It's because once again, the NFL screwed up. Once again, the NFL showed you that they do not have capable leadership. It's almost like the league is running itself. It really is. Because I think to the average fan, you may not like the way they're doing business, but they say, well, you know what, it really doesn't apply to me. As long as I show up every Sunday, I sit on the couch, I go to the games, I turn on the red zone, I'm okay with that. Because the game is still the game. And even though the game might not be as good as it once was, it's still pretty damn good. It's still pretty damn good, and it's a lot better than anything else you have in terms of your entertainment pleasure. Sunday at 1 o'clock. Sunday at 1 o'clock is still going to trump everything else. That's the bottom line. Want to hear from you. 866-SAY-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Busy football day. As you can imagine, with Week 14 kicking off tonight in Atlanta. We'll talk to Teddy Bruschi, go around the league with him a little bit later on. But we'll hear from you next. It's Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio.
Want to be a part of the show? Hit Stephen A. up weekdays from 1 to 3 Eastern at 866-729-3776.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on ESPN Radio. Busy Thursday. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. One other thing we should also mention, too. The Cleveland Browns are in search of a new general manager, and when have you heard that one again? If I am counting correctly, I believe that whoever they hire and give that person the distinct misfortune of being the next ex-general manager of the Cleveland Browns, that'll be the 9th since 1999. Can you imagine that? You imagine having almost 10 general managers in 17 years? I mean, it's no wonder this team is the laughingstock of the NFL and maybe even in pro sports. But remember something, they don't have the longest playoff drought in the National Football League. Remember that. Okay, the Browns actually snuck into the playoffs in 2002. The Buffalo Bills still have a longer postseason drought than Cleveland does. But Sashi Brown is on the way out here, and they put out a statement saying that, we thank him for his contribution to the club, but we're going to go in a new direction. That's all well and good. That's fine. But they also tell you in the same breath that Hugh Jackson is going to be the head coach in 2018, not whoever they get to be the GM and let he decide Hugh Jackson's fate. No, they said Hugh Jackson is going to run the team because I guess the Browns know something that you and me and everybody else with half a brain don't know. Is that this coach who has a 1-27 record so far over the last 2 years is sitting on something great. But he hasn't been able to unleash it yet. I hope it happens for their sake at some point. But think about this for a second. If you are one of these hotshot quarterbacks, all right, if you're Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold or Josh Allen or whoever, that they're thinking about maybe making the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next spring, and you know that the Cleveland Browns are sitting there with the number 1 pick in the draft, They don't have a clue. They don't have a plan. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And they might even be coming off an 0-16 season, okay? Because with each passing week, the possibility grows even more. They're not beating the Packers this week, although you never know. I can't see them beating Baltimore. You want to say maybe they catch the Bears napping going into Chicago on Christmas Eve? Who knows? But 0-16 looks like a distinct possibility. If you're going to enter the NFL draft, do you want to sacrifice your career potentially and go play for Cleveland, knowing full well that they might take it with the first pick unless they're dumb enough to trade out of there again, just like they did last year when they told the whole world, yeah, we don't think Carson Wentz is that good. We're going to trade down. And Carson Wentz is probably only going to win the MVP in his second year in the National Football League. We don't think that Jared Goff is that good. Jared Goff has the Rams in first place and 9-3 in his second year in the National Football League. God help anybody who enters that situation. I know that there's one of only 32 of those gigs in the world, right? You want to be a general manager in the National Football League? It's only 32 of those jobs. But I might think about looking for another line of work if it means being employed by the Cleveland Browns. That's just me. That's just me. And take stock. If you're a fan of any of the 31 other teams, any of them, and there's a lot of bad ones, but you got it better than those poor souls do in Cleveland. Consider yourself fortunate. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. We'll start it off with Phil. Phil, you're on ESPN Radio today. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dan. How are you?
Good, Phil. What's going on?
Well, I had a problem with your opening monologue about Commissioner Goodell.
Mm-hmm.
PR is, you can put a spin on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, the suspensions and all that, they were caused by players' actions, not by the commissioner. He had to protect the shield.
Well, wait a sec. Let me stop you, Phil. Let me stop you 1 sec. Let's go back to the beginning of when things got nasty, and clearly it was with Ray Rice. Do you not think that ultimately what happened to Ray Rice was because of an overreaction of common sense from the media, the fans, public? Because remember, Ray Rice initially, what did he get? 2 games? A slap on the wrist? Then everybody saw the outrage from the video that was presented, and then only then did Roger Goodell decide, you know what? We don't even have anything in place in terms of punishment for domestic violence in the NFL. Oh, yeah, now maybe we should look into that. So I don't think it was necessarily, yes, you want to say it was the players' fault, sure, but they did not have a plan, and they were flying by the seat of their pants.
Right, but in any other world, in your world at ESPN, in my world where I was, we wouldn't have even had a suspension. We would have been fired. Do you agree with that?
Probably, but again, think about this, Phil. That's the real world, unfortunately. Depending on your line of work, depending on what you do, your stature, you have certain privileges that others don't. But here's the thing. Without having a plan, and I thank you for the phone call, Phil, okay, without having a plan, don't you think that in any walk of life, whether you're running a $13 billion entity like the National Football League is, or if you're running the corner store that you get your coffee at in the morning on your way to work, if you don't have a plan, would you call that leadership? Right? When you define leadership, when you look it up, don't you think having a plan is right there near the top of the list? And when I look at this commissioner and I look at this guy who's running this league, it's almost like it's running itself. And that's what I've always said about Goodell, okay? I don't think he's done anything. In fact, I know he has not done anything in the last decade to make this game any better than what it was. Think about it. This league was crafted by Pete Rozelle. He was the genius. He was the man that built this league into the superpower that it was. And then Paul Tagliabue took the torch and was very successful as he was the commissioner and continued to grow the game. What has Roger Goodell done? Roger Goodell was the kid who was given the keys to the house by the parents for the weekend, and they told him, don't burn it down, and he's come damn close. That's what he's done. He's taken over a beautiful, giant, big old house, and you're lucky it's still standing. That's what's happened. But you know what? He's gotten paid handsomely doing it, and it's good work if you can find it. If you open up the newspaper today and you look at the classified ads and you try to look for a gig that pays you $40 million a year and you don't even really have to be very good at, good luck getting that job. And if you got it, hang on to it for dear life. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. here on a Thursday. It's ESPN Radio. 866-ESPN is the telephone number, 866-729-3776. Want to tweet a comment or question my way? You can get me at Dan Graca, Graca. You know, another thing that's gotten a lot of talk over the last few days in the NFL, apart from Roger Goodell and his new contract extension, is what took place on Monday night in Cincinnati between the Steelers and the Bengals. And look, you could chalk that up to, you know, an old-fashioned division rivalry with two teams that clearly don't like each other. Clearly there's a history. You wanted to go all the way back to 2005. Remember when the Steelers and the Bengals met in the playoffs in the first round and Kimo von Oelhoffen went low on Carson Palmer and ripped up his knee and, for all intents and purposes, ended Cincinnati's chances of winning that game or really going on any sort of a run that year in the AFC playoffs. But, you know, that one got a little chippy the other night. And for a league that prides itself, or at least tries to pride itself, on player safety and making sure guys emerge from the games each and every week in good standing. Now, I say try to pride themselves because you tell me how Thursday Night Football, for example, helps in terms of player safety and recovery. I mean, most guys will tell you they need a full week after playing a game before they even start to feel halfway decent again. And, you know, some of these teams that have to play on Thursday night, you're telling them in 3 days after you get off the field, you got to go play another football game. How is that conducive to making sure you get your proper recovery? But that's neither here nor there. You watched the game, you saw everything that went on. Juju Smith-Schuster, Vontaze Burfict, George Iocca. You know, those hits were pretty nasty. And you could say back in the day, you know what, that's what we were used to. But this is a different world we're living in so many avenues. And certainly with the National Football League, it's no different. You want to say that it's better? You want to say that it's worse? You know what, that's your prerogative, and that's your judgment. Me, do I appreciate the physicality? Do I appreciate the contact? Absolutely. But sometimes you have to play within the rules, right? And sometimes you have to go by what's allowed. And maybe reluctantly, I've kind of embraced the NFL to a certain degree as to where they are right now. Now, look, some of the things are ridiculous, right, in terms of the way they protect the quarterbacks. And especially if you breathe on the quarterback after he throws the ball, they're going to give him a 15-yard penalty, roughing the passer on and on. Little things like that drive me nuts, and they still do. But maybe what we saw on Monday was a little bit above and beyond in terms of fair play. Mike Mitchellâ was a guy who was on the field on Monday night. He's a safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Physical player, likes to deliver hard hits. He earns a paycheck. He earns a living playing physical. He didn't take too kindly to the backlash that went on by media, fans, public alike, everybody. Him in his locker yesterday out at the Steelers facility. This was him with the media, and safe to say he took a couple of shots, even at the leadership of the National Football League. Take a listen to this.
At the end of the day, this is football. If you want to see flag football, then let's take our pads off. That would make it easier for me, because now I don't got to wear heavy shit. But give us flags for me to pull off, because that way I know what we're playing. You know, I signed up to play full-speed contact football, and we're not doing that. I feel like I got to ask a guy, hey, are you ready for me to hit you right now before I hit you? And that's crazy. I'm going to mess around and get hurt trying to protect an offensive player because he's running an over route. Damn it, your quarterback shouldn't have threw that ball messed up. That happened 2 years ago. I'm not joking at all. Andy Dalton threw a ball to Tyler Eifert 2 years ago. Tyler Eifert had to dive for it. I was aiming for his gut. But if he don't dive, he don't get in the head. That's $50,000 out of my pocket, though, because Andy throws a bad ball. Make that make sense. And at first you're taking our money, but now, you know, I got like Matt Hasselbeck calling me a dirty player and trying my character, and we've never met before. I donate more money to Cincinnati underprivileged kids than probably people on the Bengals. So don't give me that name. My nephew goes to school there, man. I take all that personally. If you don't know me, if you never had a conversation with me, don't judge us by what you see on football, because football is my competitive side. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so much going on in the game right now. Yes, obviously I'm a little flustered, but I mean, we just got to do better. We got to do better. I said it yesterday. We got to do better as players. When we sign the next CBA, we got to get better leadership as who's running the league, because obviously everybody from fans, owners, players are all disappointed in Roger Goodell. We just got to do better. We can't have a guy where you just hand out discipline on how you see fit. There needs to be a set guideline of how we do what we do.
Can you think, first of all right, and this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Can you think of any of the other sports to where players are as vocally adamant about their displeasure over the guy who's ultimately their boss? It's not even close. And this is Mike Mitchell. Say what you want. Mike Mitchell's a veteran player. He's bounced around. Good player. He's lasted. He's lived the dream. The average career in the NFL is, 3 years and change? He's well surpassed that. So at the end of the day, Mike Mitchell is an NFL success story, but he's not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination, right? I mean, is he even a top 10 in terms of popularity on his own team? Probably not. But that's Mike Mitchell calling out the commissioner. And he has hopes for new leadership and a new seat. That ain't going to happen. I hate to burst his bubble, but that's not happening. Commissioner's not going anywhere. But he did make some pretty candid points about the state of the game. And it's interesting, too, because now you don't have to worry about this because you're not a player, I'm not a player, right? We're not out on the field each Sunday. But you could talk about letting up. Like, for instance, his job is to knock people into next week. He's a safety. If you want to say pump the brakes, if you want to say maybe I'm not going to hit this guy as hard as I should, that's cool, right? And that's what the NFL maybe wants these guys to do. But anybody who's played in the league will tell you that this game goes on 1,000,000 miles an hour out on the field. And when you are most susceptible to injury and when you are most vulnerable is when you let up, is when you take your foot off the gas. Because you might realize or you might know, all right, I'm going to let up and I'm not going to go as hard on this guy to maybe spare him and maybe look out for his safety. But the guy wearing the other jersey who's trying to knock you into next week, maybe it's to deliver a blindside block like we saw with Juju Smith-Schuster the other night, or make sure that you're out of the way so his guy can gain a few extra yards. He doesn't know you're letting up. And if he comes and rams you into next week, then how's that going to fare for you? Then you're going to be the one out like a light and maybe in the hospital. That's what the NFL doesn't take into consideration. Go slower, let up, take it easy. Doesn't work that way. Then you're in harm's way. You can't have it both ways. That's the problem. And I always say this, all right? I give these guys a ton of credit. I really do. Because, and I mean this with all due respect, you have to have a little bit of crazy in you to play professional football. You do. What you are subjecting your body to, what you're subjecting your brain to, your physical well-being. I know the paycheck is really good. And I know you probably played the game your whole life. You love it. But you got to have a screw loose somewhere to be able to go out there and willingly sign up for that type of punishment on a week-in, week-out basis. No, thank you. And this is a league now where they don't even practice as hard as they used to. They don't wear pads every day in practice. They don't have 2-a-day practices anymore in training camp, right? They've eased up on the physical contact, which maybe goes a long way towards maybe the diminishing product of the game. Maybe some of these injuries that are taking place because these bodies aren't as used to contact as maybe they ordinarily would be. There's two schools of thought there. But the league is doing everything they can to make the game safer, but it still isn't. Because you still hear all these stories. And CTE now is something that is extremely prevalent. And it's happening. And it's real. 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Reed is up next. Reed, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm great. How are you doing today?
Good, Reed. What's on your mind?
Hey, it seems like the NFL has an identity crisis, right? NHL has said, we are a dangerous game. We are like the second most dangerous game ever, second only to Pocatoke, the ancient Mayan game where they used to kill each other if they lost. You know,
we all grew up on that one, sure.
Yeah, right. But you got to take the NFL now with all the new science that's coming out and everything about CTE and injuries and long-term damage. They have to embrace it and be like, listen, we know this is dangerous. We're going to do our best. And Roger Goodell has kind of fumbled on that, right? He's stumbled and fumbled and done everything. You need to have set guidelines for the hits, how we take action. There's just a lot. It's an identity crisis. They don't know who they are.
I think an identity crisis is an interesting way to look at it, Reed. And I thank you for the phone call. And as I said, they kind of want both schools of thought here, right? They still want to keep the contact. They want to deliver the excitement and the hard hits and whatnot, but yet they still want to make the game safer. And I don't think that you can accomplish both. And as a result, I mean, look at what's happening offensively. Look at some of these numbers that are being stockpiled by these quarterbacks and these wide receivers. And clearly it's become a passing league. I don't love that. I don't like putting on a game on Sunday and it feels like I'm watching arena football or I'm playing a video game. That's why, so many people get enamored with these passing statistics. And look, he's the, like with Jared Goff, for example, or Carson Wentz, these guys who are only in the NFL 2 years. And they say, after each and every game, you see some statistic like Jared Goff is the first quarterback to throw for such and such amount of yards and all these completions in his first 2 years since so. You know why? Because they're living in a world where almost anybody can complete a pass. And almost anybody can get big chunks of yardage. Because you're not allowed to touch anybody on defense. And that's why I think this record book is, clearly it's been tarnished. You think Bud Selig and the folks at Major League Baseball took a detonator to the baseball record books during the steroid era? What do you think is happening with the NFL? What do you think is happening with those records? So that's why when you go back and you look at a guy like Joe Montana, for example, who's considered by many to be the greatest quarterback of all time, you're not going to see his name in any of like the top 10 or top 20 single most passing yards in a season because back then it was a lot harder to throw the football. And in the years that have passed, you have all these guys who many would consider to be just so-so quarterbacks, and guys who won't even be able to sniff the Hall of Fame can go out there and throw for 4,500 yards in a season. But some yo-yo is then going to look at the statistics and say, oh, well, Matthew Stafford threw for 4,800 yards. He's better than Joe Montana. He's better than John Unitas. He's better than, so-and-so. No, that's not the case. Don't go by the numbers. That's the NFL's way of saying, all right, let's open it up a little bit. So there's not as much contact. There's not as much physicality, not as much defense. But you're tarnishing the foundation to which we used to get here. Teddy Bruschi coming up at the top of the hour. We'll continue talking to you at 866-ESPN, 866-729-3776. Dan Graca in for Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Dan Graca in for Stephen A. today on a busy Sports Thursday. 866-ESPN, your number, 866-729-3776. You can tweet at me at Dan Graca. Just checking out Twitter. Aaron Rodgers practicing in pads today. Remember, he can't come off IR officially until next week at the earliest. But and I have no dog in the fight here. I just love watching Aaron Rodgers play. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. And the Packers become that much more watchable with him under center than they do with Brett Hundley or anybody else. Please, if you're the Packers, don't slip up this weekend in Cleveland, even though we trashed the Browns a little while ago and we said there's a good chance they could go 0-16. If you're the Packers, don't lose this game next week. I want Aaron Rodgers to come back with still something to play for. Please make that happen. And they got a tough road, too. They got the Panthers, they got the Vikings in the next couple of weeks, so nothing is assured here. But my goodness, I want to see this guy with an opportunity to make magic happen yet again, because he is a special, special player. Ryan in New Jersey is up next. Ryan, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
You know what? I couldn't agree more on Rodgers. I really hope that the Packers win this week, boy.
Hey, we all saw what he did last year. I just can't get that throw to Jared Cook on the sidelines in Dallas out of my head. He's phenomenal.
He's a magician. It's great. But as far as Mike Mitchell goes, I couldn't agree more with his stance because what are the facts? The facts are nobody makes you play football, and the game is the game. Now, I understand trying to legislate out egregious hits and guys, like Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, you hit the guy in the head like that, and then you stand over him. That guy gets fined. That guy gets suspended. I understand that. But it's football. You know, there's guys out there working jobs for $20 an hour who get injuries and get hurt and die from things later on in their life because of what they had to do at work. You know, these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to go out there and play this game, and that's the way the game is. I mean, you can't take football and turn it into something it's not, and then expect it to be as popular and expect people to tune in. Because what do people like? They like big pass plays, big run plays, and big hits. I mean, that's part of the game. That's what made you famous. So I can understand the egregious stuff, but like Mike Mitchell was saying, when an offensive player dives and he gets clipped in the head, or that play when Joe Flacco slid late and Kiko Alonso caught him in the helmet, I mean, what's the defender supposed to do there? It's the game. That's going to happen. I totally agree with Mike Mitchell.
And there's a couple of instances, and Ryan, good phone call, for example, along those lines. Like, how many times do we see where a defensive player is, lunging at a ball carrier to make the tackle, or the quarterback or whoever, and his head is not anywhere near the ball carrier's helmet, but what if the ball carrier then inadvertently lowers his head and that's where the contact happens? How is that on the defensive player? Even though he's going to get flagged and it's going to be 15 yards and he might even get fined for it. But I keep saying, these guys, it's not like the Matrix where you can just contort your body in midair and stop motion and kind of just avoid the guy's head. It doesn't work that way. It's not a video game. They're not puppets. This is real life. They're human beings. Michael in Oakland is up next. Michael, you're on ESPN Radio. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for taking my call.
What's up, Mike?
Now, Hugh Jackson, I thought he did a great job in Oakland. He's a better coach than Dennis Allen, better coach than Jack Del Rio, Jim Fisher. And with regard to Cleveland, I believe that they have made an exception. And they have said, hey, you know what? You probably got overruled on golf, Wentz, Watson.
Mike, how is he a better coach than Jack? Mike, let me ask you a question. How is he a better coach than Jack Del Rio?
Jack Del Rio, I'm a Raider fan. Mm-hmm. And the Raiders' problem is leadership.
Jack Del Rio, though, before he got to Oakland, let's not forget, when he coached the Jaguars in 2007, he went into Pittsburgh on a Saturday night and won a playoff game in a hostile environment in Pittsburgh. Hugh Jackson hasn't ever sniffed the playoffs. He hasn't had a winning season in his life. How can we say that he's a better coach? That's not fair.
Okay, well, that's just my opinion. But with regard to the Cleveland Browns, I think that they have said, hey, you know what? We're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You probably got overruled on some stuff. We're going to get that GM out of here. And the team, I believe that the team will respond to that, because they understand that the GM was inept, and they also, I believe, they understand that the coach is in the trenches with them, and he is probably can be a pretty good coach if he had, some personnel.
Mike, we got to run. Here's all I'll say: you hire a GM, you got to let the GM pick their coach. You can't inherit a guy. That's not fair. Teddy Bruschi, we'll ask him. NFL analyst coming up next here on ESPN Radio.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.